Undertale is an amazing game, and one day as I was scrolling through my Steam library looking for a game to play as I always do, it caught my eye. So, I played it, and when I say this, I don't mean it lightly, but it was one of, or even the most nostalgic thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I didn't know why. This happened in 2021, I only bought the game 3 years before in 2018. And even when the game came out in 2015, it's not like I loved it. I didn't even watch any YouTubers play it. I must have first started watching it just before I bought it, and even then, I watched a full playthrough before I did. I had a habit of doing that back then. I watched someone play the entirety of Portal 2 before I bought it, and now it's one of my favourite games ever, and I have a stupid amount of hours in it, plus a giant metal poster. Anyway, so, I couldn't have been that nostalgic for Undertale just because of time, so there must be something else. What could be causing my nostalgia? And I've got just the answer right here. It's because of... Stop! Hold on. Before I tell you, let me talk to you about the influence of music. This is important, I promise. I always thought that music was an underappreciated part in games. I started to think that because one day I realised that all my favourite games had something in common, and it was an incredible soundtrack. And yes, I know it's probably a coincidence, but ever since then, I've paid extra attention to music when I play games. And I found that music can play a very important role in how you feel. For example, watch this. Now watch this. The mood is drastically different. Even in making this video, the thing that kept motivating me to keep going was music. And Undertale is some of the best music I've ever heard in my entire life. It's one of the only games where the music is properly appreciated, and it's hard to avoid it on the internet. And it's for a very good reason, it is just outstanding. But Toby Fox hasn't just made music that sounds good. No. He has perfected how it makes you feel. Just quickly, let me mention character themes. Now, as you're probably aware, every character in Undertale follows a trope, from nerdy to nurturing, and each character's musical theme betrays their trope really well. You can tell how a character is going to act before you even know them from just the music alone. Have a listen to these. It's amazing. You can tell Undyne is going to be fierce and powerful, Sans lazy and relaxed, and Alphys nerdy and smart. The area themes do something very similar, as they make you feel emotions that perfectly complement the area and what Frisk would be feeling in that situation, and they do an unbelievable job of immersing you into this child that's fallen into this unfamiliar and hostile new world. And I'll go through them, starting from the beginning. The ruins. The ruins' theme makes me feel curious and excited, as the ruins would be an interesting place for Frisk, and it's relatively safe too as Toyle's protecting you, so you can still cling to that childlike ignorance. But I can't help but feel loneliness, and even sadness, especially here. And I feel like this is here because you know what you really want to do. And as you get past the ruins, you then end up in Snowdin Forest. Snowdin Forest's theme hits really hard in the loneliness and hostility. After you left the ruins and consequently the only person who protected you, you get spat out into a cold, scary environment where you've only met 2 people, one of them literally hunts humans. But I can feel some optimism in it too, especially here, as you do have a fresh new start where anything could happen, but you keep going and you get to Waterfall. Sorry if you want me to do Snowdin Town. The start of Waterfall's theme is full of mystery and wonder, because Waterfall has got the most interesting scenery so far, that literally being intricate caverns with glistening crystals and fluorescent rivers. Previously in the game they're just in ruins in a snowy forest, but if you just wait a few seconds, that happens. It's grand and imposing, like these caves are a force to be reckoned with, almost drowning out the mystery and wonder from before. But there is something else in Waterfall, something scarier, some bigger threat, and skipping ahead, we get to this. And it feels even more imposing than before, and by now there's pretty much none of that mystery. I feel like the previous part symbolises the caves, and this part is about Undyne, how she almost overthrows the rest of Waterfall. Also, I don't know about you, but it kinda sounds a bit royal, just like how Undyne is the head of the royal guard. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. Anyway, you get past Waterfall and end up in Hotland. Hotland seems faster than any of the areas so far, and the main emotion that I felt while listening to it would be motivation, especially here. It makes me want to just progress, go faster, which makes this area of the game feel like I'm going through it faster, and I feel like I'm rushing through it as fast as possible, which is perfect since this is when you use the conveyor belts and steam vents. Also, it's the heat theme, as cold is usually associated with being slow, and how Snowdin Forest theme is slow, and heat associated with speed, therefore Hotland's theme is faster. Now, I didn't have this next song even in this, but it is a very good example of my point, and it's one of my favourite songs in the entire game, so fuck it, you can't stop me. As you progress through Hotland and defeating a spider, and then through a hotel, you get to Core. Core's theme is the fastest of all the areas, so it's a bit like Hotland with the motivation and speed, but amplified by a lot. And I can't say it isn't helped by how the song just fucking slaps. Just, oh my god, listen to this. This song makes me feel like I can run a marathon and climb a mountain, and it just has that sense of like finality, like this is the climax of the story, especially here. And it makes sense too, as you fight through waves of upgraded enemies from the ruins as you try to get to the king that everyone's been telling you about throughout the game. So then you go through, defeat a funny robot, go up a long elevator. Get it? Long elevator? Because the song is called Long Elevator. Yeah, okay. You keep going and end up here. Undertale's an amazing game. And song. It just has something special to it. Just the emotions in it are so goddamn overwhelming. And it is really good. And yeah, I'd say it's definitely deserved to be given the privilege to have the name of the game as its name. There's just no other song in Undertale like Undertale. None that make me feel the same way. It is truly unique. But most importantly, it's by far the most nostalgic song in the game. And just this whole area was perfected for nostalgia. You are literally travelling through a grayscale version of Toriel's house as monsters you fought throughout the game talk to you. But it's a strange kind of nostalgia, as it isn't making you nostalgic for your past, it's making you nostalgic for earlier in the game. But how has Toby Fox managed to pull this off? How has he made us nostalgic within the game? And I have one thing to say to you. Leitmotifs. And if you're familiar with the Undertale soundtrack, you'll be aware that it is littered with these. And a handful of songs that don't have any leitmotifs in are very minor. But what is a leitmotif? Well, the official definition is a recurrent theme throughout a musical or literary composition associated with a particular person, idea, or situation. In layman's terms, it's a piece of music that is associated with something. And as I said earlier, Undertale, the game, is full of these, and they can do a lot for nostalgia. Quick disclaimer, I'm not saying all nostalgia from Undertale is because of the leitmotifs, they just contribute a lot to it. Most of the rest of nostalgia is probably because the game is already good. I got it? Let's continue. The main leitmotif is called Once Upon a Time, which is the name of the first song you hear after booting up Undertale. Here that is. And that leitmotif plays in Toriel's house, a bunch of other places, and then in the song Undertale is a piano. While you may not consciously notice these links, your subconscious associates the piece of music to the area you heard it in and the emotions you felt during it. So, when you hear that piece of music again, you're reminded of that. Just like how a familiar smell can bring you back to your childhood. And I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like nostalgia. So when you hear the piano in the song Undertale, you're reminded of Toriel's house and the safety and curiosity in it. And hey, I spent
9 minutes and 58 seconds
telling you about the impact that music can have, so it kind of shows how nostalgic it can make you. But that's obviously not the only leitmotif in the game, so I'd like to show you some of them. But first, I've got to say, a lot of the leitmotifs used are just used for specific characters. For example, Metaton. and this doesn't really add much for nostalgia and is frankly just boring to talk about, so I'll skip over them. To start with, we are going back to Undertale, the song. It's one of the few songs that actually have more than one leitmotif in it, and the two leitmotifs used are pretty much the main two instruments in the song, being the piano and guitar, which contributes a lot to it being the most nostalgic song. As you already know, the piano uses the Once Upon a Time leitmotif. But what is the other leitmotif then? And it's called his theme, with him being Asriel. Then here it is in Undertale. His theme is played at the end of the fight with Asriel, and is one of the most emotional parts of the game. That could also help to why the song Undertale is so goddamn emotional, but most importantly, the instrument that plays his theme in Undertale is a guitar, which is the same instrument that plays when you're at Toriel's house. Once again, reminding you of the start of the game, and therefore, boom, nostalgia. Next, I just thought it was a cool little detail, but as Asgore is the voice when you die. The song that plays when you die has a little part in Asgore's boss theme. Another little detail I really liked is how they had his theme be part of Photoshop Flowey's second boss theme, as Flowey is Asriel. Next is the Ruins leitmotif, and it is a big one. Even though most of the time a variation of it is used, it still brings your mind back to the ruins. This one is special though. It's very similar to the Ruins, so already nostalgia off the bat, but instead of making you feel curious and excited like Ruins, it adopts a much more somber tone. It plays during Sans' phone call at the end of the neutral route, so while he's saying everything that happened in the underground after the fight with Flowey, you're thinking back to the Ruins and back to the choices you took, and the combination of these makes you wonder what would happen if you did things differently. And the song is just so good. While I like the Ruins theme, this is one of my favourites. I mean, just listen to this part. The emotion in it, it's incredible. Additionally, calling the song an ending is just heartbreaking to me, as you didn't get a good ending, or even a bad ending. It's just an ending. Nothing really special about it, and it's sad, and just disappointing. After everything you did, all you got was an ending. And right when it ends, Flowey comes back and tells you how to get the good ending, the one that you didn't get, the one that these characters didn't get. And if you follow his instructions, defeat Azrael and leave the underground, you get treated to another masterpiece. The ruins leitmotif is hard to hear, but it is there, and it starts here. This song was a much more optimistic tone than an ending, as you actually got out of the underground, but also I feel fulfillment, and it just feels a lot more mature than Ruins did. While Ruins' theme felt like you were a little kid exploring a new world, now after everything's happened, any little kid would have grown and gotten more mature, and Respite represents that incredibly. It makes you wonder what's to come, but you're aware that this is the end. There you go. Wow, this video took a while to make. There are a few things I wanted to add. For example, I didn't even mention the hopes and dreams leitmotifs, but I just couldn't because it would make the video drag on and get boring. But anyway, if you like this video, if you even watched up to this point, I haven't really made any others like it, but I want to, and I have a bunch of ideas for new videos, and they'll probably be better too, so I've got a lot of experience from this. So consider subscribing, maybe you'll see me again. But in the meantime, I guess this is it. Bye.